Hey y'all, I forgot to mute this. I got a reminder. Hey, I'm live. Yeah, I know. I'm doing it. I don't need a reminder, but it does help me to remind me. Turn the phone on mute. Uh, so there's only a handful of you here, and I don't expect to be a large crowd tonight because this is a last minute and it's late. But I'm looking for some feedback. This was a special request design that came late on the 21st, so I've been working on it for a day. And this is an unfinished version, but it's a rotating. I don't have my knob glued in place yet, but it'll rotate, spin, uh, and it's divided into four quadrants there. And they sent me a picture of something similar, and it was marketed as a rotating pencil holder. You can put about anything in there if you wanted to, and use different kinds of knobs. Since this was a music related theme, I went with the disco ball. But it's still work in progress. I'm still figuring all of it out. But I thought I would show you where I'm at with the design and ask you for your feedback on what how you might would like to get the file. Because obviously you don't want it saying hobo. And maybe you don't even care anything about guitars. Maybe you want violins. So this is something that's going to be it's really easy to make it your own. Like I could what I'm thinking is, if you want to leave the monogram type in there with the treble clef, I could leave obviously leave the hobo out, and then you can put whatever name you want in and weld that in. That's easy personalization. And then on this design, maybe just leave it treble clef with the music notes, and you can weld in whatever instrument you wanted to put in there. And that's where I'm leaning. But I'm going to show you how this design is laid out, how the assembly goes together, and look for your feedback. So this is a basic, exactly a drawer pull that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I've got it in a dowel, a 1/2-inch dowel, that I'm gonna pull this apart as much as I can. Well, there's a 1/2-inch dowel that's wedged in to the top pieces there, and I drilled a hole the best I could in the center, and that'll go in there and be glued up in there. I'll probably need to put a little shim on this one or trim the shank down. Once that's glued in place, then you can actually use the knob to rotate the entire thing. The bottom is also notched out to receive a 1/2-inch dowel. And the way it works, real simple. And that's where I pre-drilled, went all the way through excessive, but that's just inserted in a 1/2-inch hole in the base. And I've got a little shim here for it to lift it off. So that by putting that small round piece on there, does a couple things. It serves like a little washer, a little spacer, but its sole purpose is to reduce the amount of contact, reducing the friction of the base. So instead of having the base sitting flat on the round, it's just contacting that little washer there, so that will spin freely with very, very little friction. Then this piece with that notch in the bottom of that will fit down onto the notch of that. And I thought, does it need to be glued in there or what? And actually, probably what it needs is either gluing it in, or from an assembly standpoint, gluing it in is going to be the easiest. But you could put slots and tabs, put tabs on the bottom of this and slots in the bottom of that so that that goes in and fits down into the slots. But that's a little bit more aggravating from a design standpoint and assembly too. So possibly just gluing it together might be the better bet. But and it really doesn't even need to be glued in, because once the ball is glued into place and that is one fixed piece, when you grab that ball, and I'm gonna reach down inside now to grab the corners since I can't, the ball just spins. But if I grab those quadrants and spin it, it'll spin. And my dowel is a little bit out of round, and so it binds up right now. So that's got to be sanded down and tweaked. But I just finished this prototype just 2 minutes before going live. So in fact, it's not even glued together. And this is made out of 5mm hard maple. And since it's solid hardwood maple, my intent was to actually sand all these burnt marks off and clean it all up. But I got to looking at it, and sometimes I like the burnt marks and sometimes I don't. I kind of do like them here. But I haven't even glued this one together. I just press fit it together and hurried up to go live. This, as I said, this one was a request from Karen. I think it's Karen M. Yeah, let's see here. Open this up and go here and here. So there's a photo of what she sent me and said, hey, I don't know. It looks like this might have been at TJ Maxx. And she got a request from someone from a family member said, hey, can you make this? And she said, no, I don't think I can, but I know somebody that can. And she sent me that photograph. And so I put something together pretty quick. So I'm going to show you this file in Lightburn. And I'm going to show you how I created this artwork. So if maybe you're not a treble clef fan. Maybe the instruments you're fond of, you're a bass guy. Maybe you prefer the bass clef. So I'm going to show you just how easy it is to create this artwork yourself using clip art from I use it from svgheart.com. But this was the treble clef was one, the flats were another, the notes were another, the guitar was another, and I made the stanza or the lines, and then that was treble clef was one, and then I made the monogram part. So that's what I'm going to show you now is how this was actually created and the way that I'm proposing setting the file up for you guys. And there's Karen. Hey, Karen. So I'm curious, well, let's jump over to Lightburn and see. Like I said, this one's still unfinished and not fully assembled, but all right, let's see here. Lightburn. And actually, before we do that, go back here. Duh. Squirrel. Let's see here. Like I said, we only got a handful here, and see if anybody's got any immediate suggestions and or comments. Wojo says that my friend gave me a guitar with no strings attached. Well, this guitar has no strings either. I started to do some strings, but because of how small it was, I was going to do the string, and I might could actually do the strings through the through the hole. They're going to be really, really fine. And this was proposed as a rotating pencil holder. So you don't want anything that's going to be too fragile. It might get broke. And then plus two, what the intent is putting a liner behind here. And I've got two different possibilities. I've got this plastic that's actually translucent. It lets light through there. That's kind of a stained glass look. And I was gonna cut it and put it behind the side pieces But this stuff's not cheap. This stuff's expensive. Another option, and you can get it fairly inexpensive, is the non-glare picture inserts that you can buy them 5x7s, 8x10s, and they're laser friendly. You can cut them on the laser. That's another option. Those are fairly inexpensive. You can buy like a box of 50 of the 5x7s, pretty reasonable. But another suggestion someone gave me that's pretty cool, you just got to make sure that it is laser friendly. At the Dollar Tree, they have those roll up cutting boards, the flexible cutting boards. Buy them for $1.25. And they're pretty sturdy because they're used for knives or cutting boards. But you can cut that, and it's also semi-translucent. A little bit of light will come through. It's white. But you could cut it potentially with the laser and use that on the inside, and that's going to be heavy duty. But yeah, the idea is also to have something on the inside to protect that. Let's see here. Russ says you can never have too many guitars. I'm struggling with creating words in Lightburn. Well, sometimes I'm struggling just creating words. Give me more detail on what your struggles are, Brandy, and I'll see if I can't help you. Chris, I hope you're feeling better. You said that I gave you something. Hopefully you're feeling better. Instead of a 1/2-inch dowel, instead of a 1/2-inch dowel, some may like stacked laser cut circles that glue together that would do the same thing. Yeah, you could do just another way of doing it. For me, that's a little bit more work because that dowel is 30 millimeters tall. So depending on the material you're working with, if it's 3 millimeter material, you're cutting out 10 pieces to glue up. And but yeah, that's another way you can do it. But here's just a 1/2-inch dowel, cut it, put it in place. But that would not be a wrong way, just be another way. Yeah, there we go. Let's see here. And Karen says, looking good so far. Really appreciate all the work. Yeah, I've got a little bit of fine tuning to do on this, and I will get this design up on the website probably tomorrow afternoon. Edward's asking, do you know how to do a pet memorial in slate? I've seen a lot of them done. I have not worked with slate yet, and been doing this for 2 years, and I've not done any slate whatsoever. I've done some stepping stones, and I've done some marble or countertops. But from a lot of what I've seen, a lot of it is requiring painting up, and then you're actually removing the paint, and then you clear over it and protect the painted finish or in image. But I haven't done any. But now that's with the marble and the granite. With slate, you wouldn't have to do any paint work. But I have not worked with any slate, not yet. Yeah, Chris. Chris says you could just do engraved lines and have the strings just as a straight line. That is a possibility. Brandon says dental floss. All right, Brandy says getting fonts that are not a thin line and get them like your hobo letters are. Okay. Well, I want to show you how I weld this in and why it works in just a minute. Make sure I got catched up on all the comments, and we have. All right. So I'm putting in my asterisk here so I know where I've stopped. There we go. All right. So now over to Lightburn. So right now, this is the file work in progress. And this is the inserts. And you can see it's got two 30 millimeter cutouts here for the dowel to come up through the bottom and from the top. And then this is the thickness of the material where they'll actually slide together and interlock. It's kind of a funky looking shape, but that's what works. and then the bottom with the 1/2 inch hole for the dowel to stick through. A round base with a 1/2 inch hole. There's the spacer, and then the 4 sides. Now, I used Gravini to create the basic box design to get the tabs and fingers. I could have designed that all out myself, but it's just easier to use Gravini and let that do the work for you. And just for giggles, Gravini, if I've mentioned it quite a few times after it was shared with me by one of the viewers, but I'm going to copy and put this in the comments, paste, because if you haven't seen this yet, Gravini, it's not Gravini.com, it's Gravini.cz/en. But that's what I use to get the actual box shape. And then I used my svgheart.com to grab some different pieces of clip art. And I'm going to grab this one now. See this one right here. And I am logged into my account. So, and it's also a free download, even if you're, and I'm a subscriber, but so I'm going to copy the image instead of downloading it. Go over here, paste it into Lightburn, trace it, delete the original, and ungroup it all. All right. But now I want to make sure that the treble clef is grouped. Make sure that the flats are grouped, anything that's got holes in it, and the rest of them are just individual pieces. All right, so there's my basic clip art. Let's grab the treble clef, bring it up here. And if you're a bass clef fan, in fact, let's group that because those go together. You could do the same thing with the bass clef. But from here, I just drew out a straight line. And actually, you need to know the size that you're going to be working. And this is another thing I'm thinking about. This inner shape, right? Oops, go here and pick this. This inner shape should be, I think, 100. Yeah, 100 millimeters square. So the template to fit in there is just 100 millimeters. I'm going to bring one of them up here. And depending on, like here, I did it with the treble clef taking up 2/3 of it instead of the whole thing. But if you wanted to, you could take that, put it in here, and we'll shrink her down just a little bit, about like that. But by doing it that big and then making the lines of music all the way across here, you could do that without a musical instrument. And draw a straight line. And I'm going long because I'm getting ready to do something funky here. Let's do an array of that. We're going to do 5 rows. And we'll increase our Y spacing until it looks like what I want it to. And that, we'll go ahead and make it 15 just because I like, there we go. Say okay. Now with that selected, I'm going to do an offset. And this is something, if I'm going to make these bars that the notes are in, these individual bars. And you don't want that to be too thin and be fragile. So when you do your offset of a line, you do it half, the offset half of what you want your overall thickness to be. So if I want my overall thickness of that line to be 3 millimeters, then I'll do an offset of 1.5 millimeters. and delete the original objects and say okay. Now that group is there, and I'm going to put it there. But now I want to give it some waviness. I don't want just the straight lines there. So I'm going to go up here to Tools and the Deform selection, 16 points. And I really wish you could draw a rectangle around the ones you want. I want to get all 4 of these, but it will not let you select multiples. You can hold the Shift button and it'll move the 2 beside each other. Undo that. Well, you can't undo there. You got to go out and undo like that. So now, and that's another thing I don't like about it, but let's go back into Tools and Deform. So not holding Shift will allow me just to move this column of, and I'm going to pull it down. And I'm going to actually try and maintain the distance, the original distance between them. And now this one, I'm going to come up. And that quick and that easy, I've just created a wavy set of lines, like a waving flag. But they're grouped together. Now I want to weld them to the treble clef. And I want to edit this a little bit. I don't want that little knob sticking out there. I had to have the whole thing over far enough to get these to touch. But now I'm going to go into node editing. But because all of that's grouped together, you can't see the node. So you have to ungroup it. And I'm going to come in here tight and grab these nodes and hit the letter D for delete. And now, since they're all still selected, I can just hit the regroup button or the group button. And now they're all back together again. Now, that's still a separate piece that's on top of that square. Now, in order to get this stuff here left, you want to keep that. What I've got there is that 100 millimeter toolpath. So I need to subtract this piece from that toolpath that will leave that. So when it goes to cut it out, that's what you get. So I'm going to select that toolpath first. So I've got that rectangle, hold my Shift button and select the rest of that and hit the subtract A, subtract B. So now that's all cut out. And that, if I was to grab this and say duplicate, Control D, get out of node editing and bring that duplicate up here, select that and put it in the middle. That would cut out, leaving, because that's a solid top piece up here. So that's going to be solid all through there, keeping the lines solid all through there. Now I want to give it, I'm going to put it in a, I think what's it, B flat major. Let's put it in key of B flat major. So that should be here, I think. F A B. Yep. Let's see if it, nope, go up a little bit. There. About there. That's B flat major. So now I can select that and hold my Shift button and select that and subtract again. So now that's welded in place. That's B flat major. And now if I want to give it just a single note, just grab that note right there, bring that note up here and put it, we'll make it make it an eighth note A. And hold my shift button, select, let's see. Nope, we got to select this first because that's A, subtract B. Now that would cut out and be ready to go if you didn't want instruments in it. Any questions on how to do that? Did I confuse anybody? Chris, what's Chris saying? When trying to maintain distances, I check my X and Y coordinates above select option rather than measure tool. I find it faster. And that's how your brain works. I've not used my XY position. And for folks that don't know, let's go back over here, turn Chris's comment off, go back over here. And you're talking about up here, right? Your X position and Y position. That's what you're using for your coordinates. I've never used that in design work. My brain has never thought of it that way. But you find it faster, and that's yeah, and that's I don't know what to say that because I wouldn't even know how to begin using that in design work because my brain doesn't register it that way. And I go with more about aesthetics, what looks good, instead of, I don't worry about, okay, well, like I know I've got a 100 millimeter square template that I've got to stay within. And then as far as the size of the treble clef and the lines or this or that, I just do it by look. I don't do it by any particular size. It's just what looks good. And here, this design is if you're not wanting to use a musical instrument, you just want to have that on there, then that would serve. This would work well. But let's go back over to Lightburn. In fact, I'm going to keep that one because I actually kind of like that design. And the reason I've got this on two different layers, that's on the red layer and this is on the blue layer, because I am using my kerf offset to do my slots and tabs. So on this one, I've got an outward kerf, but on the blue layer, I have no kerf. Because if you cut this design out all on the red layer and you're adding kerf to this and adding kerf to this, you could actually begin to lose some of the detail on some of the smaller pieces because the kerf is going to expand these and make them not look as good. So that's the reason you don't need kerf on the design. So I put the artwork on a separate layer. It's got the same speed and power and pass count. It just doesn't have the outward kerf. And I can't remember, squirrel, I can't remember who sent me this email, but they have been struggling with wrapping their mind around adding kerf to both pieces. Because they were thinking that, well, if I add kerf to the slot and to the tab, then they negate each other. But when I'm adding the kerf, and when you do the kerf cut test, like I showed in a previous video, you're actually determining half of your kerf. So you're adding half of the kerf to both sides. So because I think my actual kerf is 0.2 or 0.21, somewhere in there. But when I add kerf for these boxes, I'm adding a 0.12 or 0.11, depending on the wood I'm working with. So I'm adding about half of my kerf distance to the outward part of the tab and adding half of the kerf to the outward part of the slot. So now when you go to put them all together, it all matches. It works. So if you're struggling, if that was you with the email, you're struggling with the idea of how the kerf works, forget about trying to wrap your mind about how that goes in there, how that works, use the cut test. And you watch the video, do several cut tests. In fact, today, working with this 5mm hardwood maple, because you're going to find that your kerf can fluctuate. You get something like some basswood or really, really soft stuff, you might actually burn more material away. So here I did a bunch of cut tests today with this maple. There's 1, 2, here's 3, 4. So I did, and an 8. So I did 4 different cut tests, finding the optimum kerf for this material. So it's not always going to be a one size fits all. And this is something that you do want to play with to find your optimum kerf. 0.20202020. So here, she does not want to go together. That 2, is that 2.2? That's 2.2, dummy. 2.0, there we go. It don't want to go together. I could force it, but you don't want to force it. But then there's the 0.19, and they do go together. And actually, 0.195 might make it even just a little bit snugger. But that, with gluing it up, that works. But don't waste a whole lot of your time trying to figure out how it works. Find the test that tells you what works and just trust the test. All right, back to the design. Any comments? Nope. All right. Give myself another bunch of asterisk here. All right, so I'm going to save this one and leave that as one possible design along with the guitar. Now, the guitar. Let's paste that back in here again, trace it again. Ungroup it, group it all back together. And let's do the monogram real fast. All right, so I've got a 100mm square to work with. And this time I don't need, and something that's, when you're doing your subtraction, you notice that I had the treble clef overlap the top of the square here, overlap the side and the bottom, because it's got to overlap when you do your subtraction in order for that to work. But here in this, for this design, no, Bill, I'll touch on that when I get back to the comments here. For this, I'm going to shrink it down, put it in the very center. Oh, I got to group it first, dum-dum. Group that. Now I'll put that in the center. And it is in the center. All right. I overlapped it down here, but you don't have to, because we're going to draw a straight line from here to here, and we're going to do I'm going to do an array only because I want to know exactly the distance I'm moving this apart. I want to do 2 rows, and I want to do it, let's say 30mm apart. And say, okay. Those are grouped because I had the group option selected. Now with that grouped, I'm going to put it in the center of the board like that, of that square. Now I want this to be offsets. I'm going to do the 1.5mm offset, which would actually make that 3mm thick, and delete the original object. Say okay. Now I'm going to let's see here. how did I do this one? I did that. You can do this a couple different ways. One way, I'm going to draw a rectangle from that intersection to this intersection. And it should have been 30. No, that's right. It's 27 millimeters because I did that offset from, so it's 27 millimeters. Now that's going to be my cut tool. So I'm going to select, in fact, I'm going to put that on a different path so I can see it better. We'll put it on the green path and put it in line mode. And put that on the same green path temporarily. Turn off the blue mode, the blue line. There we go. There we go. So I'm going to select my treble clef and then select that rectangle I just drew. And then I'm going to use tools and cut shapes. Now with the cut shapes, I'm going to select that middle section and delete it. And now that and that, let's see, weld that together. Well, nope, can't do that. Let's turn that back on. And I got to ungroup these. This and this. Did that leave an open path when I did the cut shape that time? Yep. So cut shapes is not the best way because you see there it's left that open, which is an easy fix. It's just a straight line. Just connect that and close it. Make sure she's closed. Move that back up. There and not just still edit. No, it's not a closed path, or it is a closed path. There we go. And weld. And if I would have used a different Boolean function, I wouldn't be having to do this right now. Unless I could have used, I think it was union or I don't want that one. I want that one. But this, I'm doing this simply to show you that there's always more than one way. There's not a right way or a wrong way. There's some ways that take more steps, and this one takes more steps. But if you find yourself in this situation, I want you to see what you need to do to fix it. Now that I've drew all those straight lines, I need to make sure that they are closed paths. So if I select this, that's got that all connected. Now see here, it's not selected, so that's an open path. So I can go to node editing and just grab that node and connect it. There we go. And grab that node and connect it. And now that's closed path. So there and weld those and there and weld those. Now I need to A subtract B. Is that what I had down there? Yep. And now I'm going to use the Boolean tools to put in hobo, all caps, and I'm going to use my brush script. And one problem that most people have that with when they're trying to weld in letters like this, I'm going to center that up in here. They put their letters in, and now they cut that out. Now, when they cut that out like that, that outer shape of the O is going to fall out, and so is the inner shape. There's nothing holding that inner shape there. There's nothing that's going to keep that from falling away. So you end up with this great big hole instead of the letter O. Same thing with this lower part of the B and this O. So what you got to do is make sure that they're overlapping. And I'm going to ungroup this and make sure that I have hobo centered in that. There we go. And now increase hobo until it overlaps on all 4 letters. That's overlapping. That's not overlapping up there yet. There. There. And now use your subtraction tools. So use your rectangle first, A, hold your shift B, select your text and subtract and put it all on a blue path. And now when you look at this, that needs to be on the blue path. When you look at this is a solid piece because here's your solid piece coming down. That's going to cut out and fall away and leave this as a solid piece standing up. That's all solid. Coming down here, the H is all solid and connected. Your O, this is solid, solid up to there and there, and that only that inner piece is going to cut and fall away. So now you can group all that back together and make sure it's centered up in your piece again. And that's how you would make a treble clef, monogram. And I will clean this up and get rid of the hobo. In fact, what I'll do is ungroup that, draw a rectangle out, then select all the hobo and delete that. I didn't get all of it. Delete and delete. So that piece, group it back together. That piece would be another potential insert that you could use to make monograms with. There's an insert with no instruments. And I'm going to do this one real quick and show how I figured that one out to make sure I had room for an instrument. Duplicate that, bring it up here. And let's do, we'll do the treble or the bass clef since I don't have the treble clef here right now. I could copy and paste it again, but I'm just going to do a treble clef. I made that one smaller because I want to have room for my guitar down here. And I'm going to show you, there was somebody finally, somebody had this problem on my Amazing Grace file with the fish base. I did not draw the fish on that base. I used clip art for the fish, and it's not symmetrical. And it's not a problem as long as you don't flip the pieces. It was a 3 stacked layer, and as long as you kept when you cut them out, you kept all of them oriented the same way, it's never an issue. But if you got one of them flipped over, then it won't stack correctly because they're not symmetrical. I knew that after about the 30th one that I made. And finally, this past week, someone emailed me and said, hey, you got a problem with that design? And I'm like, no, it's not a problem. You got your part flipped over. They're not symmetrical. That is correct. But as long as you keep them stacked and oriented correctly, it's not an issue. But I'm going to show you what I've started doing with some of the clip art to prevent that from being a problem. I'm still going to be using some clip art to save me some time. But what I do to make it symmetrical so it minimizes people thinking there's an issue. So I'm going to duplicate the same idea here. We're going to make this a little bit smaller and put in the lines real quick. We'll come about here, straight line, and do array, do an array again. This time we want 5 rows. And we'll go back to 15, see what, nope, 15 is too much because we're going to do them a whole lot smaller this time. So we'll go 10, nope. That looks pretty good. That's 6 millimeters distance between them. Now we're going to do the offset. And this time I'm only going to do, we'll do 2 millimeters. So I'm going to do 1 millimeter offset, which will make that 2 millimeters wide. Say okay. Deleting the originals. Now you can see that bottom line's not touching the base clef. So I've got to bring it over enough for that to touch. And that looks good. I'll clean those up. But let's do our hippie wave. Tools, warp selection. No, not warp. We want deform. 16 points. And if you didn't want to have it, if you, this is, I'm going to do this one differently. If you want to create a different perspective on this, instead of it having just a wave to it, but also a wave and coming to you, coming outward, then what you would do is you would allow those lines to get fatter as they were coming up. So we're going to come on up here. So there it looks like those are going in, and as they come out, they're getting closer to you, so they're getting larger. A and B, and we're going to weld those together. Now I'm going to go into node editing, and I'm going to get rid of those guys. The letter D. And it's important that you use the letter D, not the delete button. Because if you hit the delete button, you'll delete the whole design. You don't want to do that. Select the nodes you don't want and hit the letter D. And I'm going to put a little bit of curvature on that one, not much. There, like that. And now I'm going to group those and weld those two. And actually, you know what? I'm going to drop those down. And now weld them into place. And you can also, instead of doing having to go to the deform tool, these little lines here and here. Now you know what these four are. This is, you're going to draw it out and make it bigger. And this is going to, if you hold the control button, it'll shrink it. But some of you may not be using these skew lines, and you may not even have them turned on. Down here at the bottom, you've got move, size, rotate, and shear. If I turn off the move button, move is that center dot right there. I'm going to move it over here so you can see it. So if I turn off move, that'll go away. If I turn off size, those four will go away. And now it only leaves the rotate and the shear. The rotate are these out here. You can rotate your piece. And shear are these two right here. And shear will allow you to do just what it says. You shear the shape, shear the design. And let's go turn my move back on and our size back on. Bring that over here. And we'll weld that to that. And now move the whole thing over just a wee bit. So I'm overlapping up here, of course, way overlapping over there, and I'm overlapping just a little over there. So now subtract. Take your rectangle or your square and first hold your shift button, select that, and then A subtract B. A subtract B. And that will give you that. And now you've got a place down here at the bottom if you want to put an instrument in here. So I'm going to go back over to my SVG heart.com. Wrong button, stupid. Get rid of that. Now, bass clef, there's a bass guitar. Okay. I can't do what I was going to do with the bass guitar because it's not symmetrical, and that's fine. But I do want to. I want the bass guitar for this bass clef musical note. So copy image, go to Lightburn, paste it, trace it. So there's my bass guitar. But now I want to show you how you can make sure you're when they need to be symmetrical, what you can do. So I'm gonna come back here, get rid of the bass, and I'm gonna grab the guitar here. Now, guitar players will tell you or are aware that the guitars are really not symmetrical either. Sometimes they'll have a little bit larger lope down at the bottom, but I want this to be symmetrical so that people aren't having any issues or concerns or design problems. If it was going to be standing alone and they have to be on stacked. So this is what I do to make sure a piece like this is symmetrical. Oh, back to Lightburn. I didn't copy that yet. Go back to the guitar. Didn't need to do that. Copy. Paste it. And another thing is a lot of blurry here, and it's not going to trace real well. So trace and delete. Say okay. So I'm even going to clean all that up. I'm going to get rid of that. Got to ungroup it first. Grab all that and delete. Then to make this guitar symmetrical, I'm going to take and draw a rectangle. I'm going to come up here. And draw a rectangle out like that. And now I'm going to use cut shapes again, selecting the guitar, and then select the square or the rectangle, go to tools, cut shapes. Then I'm going to select this piece over here and delete it. Then I'm going to select this piece, Control D, duplicate it, and mirror it. And now with that mirrored, I select this and Alt Shift H, move those together. Oh, crap. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Greg. Third. All right, let's start over. Delete. Thanks, Greg. All right. So paste that guitar in place. Trace the guitar. Like I said, all this didn't trace very well. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to ungroup it, delete that. And then I'm going to come up here to the top center of that and draw a rectangle and move it up. And now with that in place, select my guitar, select the square, go to Tools, Cut Shapes, select this half and delete it. Select this half, Control D, duplicate it, then mirror that, bring it over here, then Alt Shift H to bring them together. And that would make that guitar perfectly symmetrical. Now the neck on that guitar is a little bit skinny. So what I would do then is go back to here, select that one, delete that, Control D, duplicate it, mirror that, Alt Shift H, bring them together, and that's better. That's a better neck. And you can see how the ants are running toward each other here, running up, and this one's running up. So it's not a it's an open shape. So if I select both of them, go into node editing. Well, it's grouped. There we go. Grab that node, bring it down, and now you can see the ants are chasing each other. Once those ants are chasing each other, it's now grouped. Yes, you could use mirror on a line. Yes, you could. And now that that's symmetrical and it's closed path, that's a funky looking circle. It's not a true circle. I'm going to draw out a perfect circle, same size. And then get rid of that funky thing. And that doesn't look like it's quite centered. So I'll select that and put it in the center. Oh, not there. Center. There we go. Group that. Save that guitar. But now with this bass clef, I'll use this bass, rotate it. Oh, and another thing I want to show you. Let's go back to that rotate. So somebody mentioned a minute ago about the rotating at 45 and how it's going to affect the kerf and different things. Whenever I'm cutting a box out, I do rotate the image, rotate the box 45 degrees, and I put my material in there 45 degrees so that when it cuts it out, it's still got a straight grain and not running at a 45. And since I've been rotating things, I've already shared with you guys that if you hit the greater than and less than button, it will rotate them in the direction that that arrow of the greater than or less than is pointing. So if you select this bass guitar and you hit the less than button or the comma key, it'll rotate at 90 degrees counterclockwise. Greater than, put it back to where it was. Greater than again will rotate it clockwise. That's rotating at 90 degrees. If you hold your shift button and less than, it'll rotate 45 degrees. If you hold your control button and less than, it'll rotate 15 degrees. There's 45. So there, I bring that down here and shrink that down a little bit. And actually, because that's going to interfere with my musical notes, I would possibly do that. And then I can make it even a little bit bigger. and rotate it beyond 45 just for aesthetic reasons. Now select that and subtract the bass guitar. Well, that bass guitar ain't quite overlapping over there. We got to move that some more. There. A, subtract B. And there's a bass guitar. Bass clef. Okay. Sorry about keeping you stuck on me. I just figured you want to look at this more and not Lightburn. I just screwed up. Yeah, and thank you for bringing and most of the time I'm not seeing the comments, but I caught that out of the corner of my eye and I was like, oh, way to go, stupid. And I Gillette also, hey, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, and Dale says you're pretty, but I'd much rather be seeing Lightburn. And Jeff mentioned, yes, you could use Mirror Online to flip that. And just like I said, there's only one way to do things in Lightburn. And if you listen to somebody else, they'll convince you that there's one way and there's the best way, and it's usually their way. But there's 100 ways to do things. And like Chris said, he uses the X and Y positioning to help him in designing. I've never done that, never thought about doing that. And I don't actually even know how to begin doing that. But he does it and it works for him. So it's all a matter of how you see things, how things register with you, how easy it is for you to recall it when you need to. Because there's several different ways to do all of these things. This is the only time you want ants. Yeah. All right. So back to the design. Like I said, I've got. I think whenever I've got the finished piece, having a treble clef that you can monogram. Maybe I need a bass clef that you can monogram. And then I like this. I like that with no musical instrument at all. Just a great big lines of music, a little bit. I like that. And then maybe doing a small one like this with no instrument in it so you can weld in your own instrument of choice. What do you guys think? Give me some feedback. That's kind of why I went live tonight. I don't have this ready to upload yet. I hope to have it ready for tomorrow and get it on the website. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what would you like to see if you were going to get this off Hobo with Wood? But, I'm showing you how to do this. Told you I got the box from Gravini, and then I'm showing you how to create all the artwork. You don't have to go to Hobo with Wood and buy it. You could do it yourself. I'm showing you step by step all these different things. Let's see. Greg says, I just started with my MK2. Designing is a bit overwhelming, but I did my first stainless tumbler. Well, if you've already, and I worked with my rotary right out of the box when I first got my laser and did some things with it. And then I put it on the shelf and never touched it again for almost a year. There are some people who just tumblers are their bread and butter. They do tumblers all day long. I don't do a whole lot. I've shown how to use it and how to use the different features with the warp taper for your designs. And I even had a mathematical way to do that before they came out with the tool, the warp tool cylinder for the rotary. The only musical instrument I can play is the radio. Well, that's something. I used to play the trombone. I was second in the state a long time ago. I used to play the trombone, the baritone, tuba. Played snare for a little bit. Never played a full kit. I was in the marching band and jazz band, and Chris says, I'm going to do one where the lines continue around the box to see how it looks. Yeah. Yeah. We have the lines here and then pick up on this side instead of doing the monogram. Yeah, that could be cool. Especially if you did it in a continuous wave and maybe allowed for putting different instruments in each of the four pieces. Only from a design standpoint, I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, if you're going to start here and you're going to make it with a treble clef and or a bass clef, and it continues and continues around, when you get back to here, it started here, it's going to end here. Would you do? Yeah, I don't know if you were aware of this, Chris, but in sheet music, when you get to the end of the stanza, it's got those double bars there, a solid and a thin one, shows you that's the end of that line. Would you make that, use that realistic ending of the line, or not worry about it? You could even make it a repeat line or a repeat symbol. That would actually be kind of cool. Because if you're going to do it for people who are truly musical, that's like if anybody reads music, that you'll know that that's B flat major. So those are where they're at on purpose. Those weren't positioned there as an accident. That's something else that I hate to see with AI generated stuff. Some of it looks kind of cool, but makes no sense whatsoever. So I try to think about and have intent on my designs. Unpack the rotary and never used it. This is helpful for designing. Thank you. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I do try and show people the entire design process when I'm doing something like this. This will be online on hobowithwood.com. You can go purchase the file when I'm done. The only advantage to it is maybe I'm going to have, half a dozen pre-made files or designs here that you can just drop in, put in what you want, and you don't have to go create it. But I've just shown you how easy it is to make your own and make it truly personable, your own design. Double bar. Yeah, maybe do the double bar with the two dots on it, which is the repeat. That would be really cool, because then it's, it's just repeating itself. Yeah, that'd be nice. Still a little lost on certain fonts. Certain fonts are better than others when you're wanting to do, because depending on how you're setting up that monogram, if you don't have it set up like this, where there's a bar that you can weld to the bottom and the top, then there you have the possibility of the whole letter falling away. But then what you have to do is create or edit the font so that it has somewhere for it to hold on to it, that center part of the O. Yeah, well, a French horn, and I just jumped over a few here, but this is Karen's request. The design is her request, and she's asking, will a French horn and or a saxophone work instead of a guitar? Yep. In fact, the French horn is going to be a little bit challenging because it's so intricate, but over at svgheart.com, go away. There's the French horn. But see all that? That's going to be a little bit challenging to cut out. Let's take a look and see how bad it's going to get. Didn't mean to do that. There. And copy. Go back to Lightburn. Paste it. Then trace it. And delete. That's a lot of little bitty pieces. Now, what you could do, because there's so much and that's so intricate, if you make that too small, a lot of that's going to be lost. uh, Instead of a great big treble clef, you could do a great big French horn and make that the focal point of that panel. Let's see here. 100 millimeters. In fact, if you wanted to make this some type of monogram, um, and you could add some musical notes and other things. Let's see here. Let's grab this one. That one's upside down, so let's correct it and mirror it. I don't know about that, but if you, I'm just worried about all of this detail in here getting lost if you make that much smaller, and that's going to be, because right now that's 4 by 3 inches, so you'll have some decent detail in here. But if we ungroup this and just look at the size of these holes, millimeters, that's a 2 millimeter hole. That's not bad. That's going to be lost. That's less, about a half a millimeter. In fact, I would probably delete some of the really, really small stuff, clean up this area right here. This is really too fragile. So I would grab this, go into node editing, get rid of all of these nodes right here. This one, let's see what, I'm going to come down here and put one in right here. Letter I, insert, grab that and hit the letter D to delete that. And then bring this on in here. And round that up a little bit. That would cut out much cleaner, much better. Select that one, go to tools. Is it tools or edit? Edit. Select shapes smaller than selected. And now hit delete. Now to clean up a bunch of those little bitty guys. And now group all of that back together. Hold control, deselect that, group that back. Now that French horn is all grouped. Put it in the center. Make it a little bigger. And bring it down. And you can put a monogram at the bottom. Notes at the bottom. But I don't know that I would make that much smaller. That, subtract that. Select your square first, then your other piece, subtract. And let's grab that one, bring it over here. A, subtract B. And then you could do straight line across there and do an offset. Create that or select that offset. Come on. Say okay. A subtract. And then you could use that to put in whatever her name is. And you know, do brush script again, all caps, Chris. Shrink her down, put it in the center of that. Oh, got to ungroup that. Ungroup that so we can select just that bottom one. And actually, I want to move that into that. A subtract B. And then you could have a personalized French horn by doing something like that. Or offset around the French horn and then engrave the details on the solid parts. Yeah, you could engrave it, but what I'm looking at, what I'm trying to do is by opening all that up and then putting that piece behind it for even more detail. Even you could even do just a solid piece of thinner Baltic birch or something painted solid white and glue that in there. And by having that all cut out and then the back piece, it just helped it all pop out. I'm trying not to do any engraving on it at all. And it's just, but you know what? It's, you get the design, you create the design, do it yourself. But yes, you could do that. Do an offset of the slight offset of the French horn and then engrave the original French horn. Chris says, yep, Jeff, that's the way he would do it. He would engrave it. And a lot of you are suggesting the same thing, engraving it instead of doing that. Brandy says, thank you, Chris. I'll keep practicing. So I don't know what suggestion you gave her, but she says, thank you. You make it look so easy. I know new things take time. Yeah, Greg, it's I try to show even all my screw ups because even when I go fast, or take my time, I screw up all the time. But I'll show you the screw ups, so how to undo them, how to fix the screw ups. But I've been doing this now. Hopefully, you guys are already aware. June 15th will be my 2-year anniversary. Not my 2-year anniversary from monetization, but when my June 15th, 2 years ago, was my first ever YouTube video for Hobo with Wood. So 2 years from inception, not conception, from inception. 2 years, June 15th. And I've been working at this practically daily. And so I've gotten over the learning curve faster than some because I am working with it every day and learning new techniques, diving into the new tools that come out and trying to figure those out. And Greg says, yeah, I like seeing the screw ups. It's a good way of learning. Yeah. I'll tell you, I do it also because I'm lazy. For my recorded videos instead of the live streams, if you want to make a perfect video with no errors, no gaps, no nothing, you could do that. You just go in and edit out all those things. And it's like, okay, well, that was a screw up, cut. And now you've just gave yourself an audible cut. So now you can go back and when you're watching it and filming it and edit it, put it together. That was cut. Let's cut there, go back. And so, all right, and action and pick up there. And you could edit all that goof out. But man, that's a lot of work. And I'm not perfect. I do not want to present myself as perfect. I screw up all the time. And so I would rather show you that than to pretend that I'm not something I'm not. Yeah, if you like seeing them screwing up, you should come see my shop. All right. So, let's see here. That was oh phooey, come on now. Karen, if you're still with me, is there anything, since this was something I put together at your request, is there something that you would like to see or different before I get off of here? So well, tomorrow when I get all this buttoned up and packaged together and up on the website, I can try and have everything you're looking for. Brandy says the screw ups help us learn if we make the same ones and how to fix them rather have them included. Absolutely. Yeah. And Karen may have already left the building. Yeah, I'm afraid to show you my shop. This right here is a mess right here. Yep. Thanks, Brandon. Hit 9,000, but I want to be at 10,000 before the 2-year anniversary. In fact, I started a funny disclaimer that I was going to play at the end of the videos. Yeah. If you ever listen to disclaimers, especially about the medications that are advertised on TV, man, you might want to have second thoughts about taking some of that stuff. I don't take any of it anymore. All right, Karen says, looking really good. Now I just need to go to West Penn to get the wood. Well, you can do this out of the stuff from Lowe's, the Baltic, the 4.5 Baltic, or not Baltic. They don't have Baltic birch, but they got 4.5 millimeter birch plywood there. So if there's a Lowe's that's more convenient than West Penn, you could do this out of that, especially if you're going to leave it with the burnt edges, because using the hardwoods, the real benefit of hardwoods is you can sand all that off and clean it all up and make it really, really pretty. But if you're going to, I like the burnt edges on this one because I'm not going to be able to clean up the insides of all of these. That's going to have some black burnt contrast in there. So having this black contrast looks good. It all goes together. 3 millimeters will work, Brandy, but it would be kind of flimsy. I would get at least that 4.5 millimeter stuff from Lowe's if you don't have. I processed all this myself. Yeah, me and a buddy processed this last night. This was those 3/4 inch boards that I showed you, I think Sunday. That was 3/4 inch maple. Went over to a buddy's house last night and we used his bandsaw, ripped those down from 3/4 inch to 3 pieces out of each one. And then today I ran them through my planer and got them all down to 5 mil. But back to the disclaimers. Some of those disclaimers are plumb scary. And so I was working on the disclaimer for Hobo with Wood about subscribing, and being subscribed. And what do you need to be subscribed? Well, you either should have pitched a tent underneath the bridge, topped on a freight train, eaten beans and franks out of a tin can, traveled, bounced around the country in an RV, all these different things, or have a laser or considering buying a laser. Then though, if you can check one or more of those, then you can subscribe to the channel. And all kinds of funny different things. And I was going to do it using AI, using a female British voice at 3 to 4 times the speed, just like they do on the disclaimers. Really, really fast, and have some really stupid stuff in it. And I blowed that up. I was trying to do this and that at the same time, and I blowed that up, and I didn't get it done. But if you're not subscribed to the channel, there was, in fact, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was Karen. Karen, thank you for your gift. That was not necessary. In fact, since this was your requested file, whenever I get this wrapped up, I'm just going to email you the Lightburn file ready to go. You won't have to go to Hobo with Wood and try and find it. I will send you the file. So thank you for the suggestion. Thank you for the donation. I do not ask you guys to do that anymore. They're always appreciated. They're still needed. But I'm not going to ask for them anymore. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I'm going to ask you to like, share, and subscribe. Now, currently, I'm in the Rolly Automation group, the Hobo with Wood group on Facebook, the Laser Engraver community with Clack and Steve. I'm in their group. But those are the only 3 real groups that I'm in that are laser groups. So if you're in another group on Facebook, share my videos with your group and maybe even make me aware of your groups. I'll join your groups. But I need to get, and it's not a need. It is a need. The more subscribers I have, the more eyeballs watching, the more money I'll get from Google. Right now, I'm only averaging about $400 a month from Google. I'm not making a ton of money off of these videos. My bread and butter that sustains me is my patrons. So patreon.com/hobowithwood is what makes these videos possible. It allows me to go and buy them. This was the only one they had today, and it wasn't on sale. Go back in there tomorrow, and it would have been $2. But today it was $4 for that stupid little ball. And this maple was, I think it was 10 square feet, and it was, I think, $70, I think, because it was the 3/4 inch board. But I just tripled it because I split it and, I ripped it and milled it. So I've got $300 worth of maple for $70, but I did a lot of work to get that. But without my patrons, I wouldn't have had my $70 to go buy the material to begin with. So patrons are greatly appreciated. Consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/hobowithwood. At the very least, subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And Brandy, are there certain letters or styles to avoid? You can make any font work with a little bit of work, but you have to know what to look for. And I'm going to show you a couple of tips. We've got 60 people still here. And we're an hour and a half in, so I'm not going to go much longer, but I'm going to show you real quick what to look for. We're getting called. I jumped all over these comments. I'm wanting to look, make sure I ain't missing nobody's. I'm trying to get caught up here. Yeah, keep it real, brother, is what I try to do. Chris says, I love the disclaimers on the pack of peanuts saying it may. Yes, they're protecting us from our own stupidity. Yeah, and Greg, one of the disclaimers about on that I had was, if you're not subscribed, you could get some phantom splinters that will itch like crazy, and they're impossible to remove because they're phantom splinters. So to avoid your phantom splinters, you need to subscribe to the channel. And Karen says gold is the way to go. Yep. If you're going to become a patron, it's $20 a month, and you get all the files for free. All the files from hobowithwood.com are free. All right, let's look at this real quick for Brandy. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's really, really simple once you know what to look for, and I'm going to show you how to fix those problem fonts. So I'm going to clean this up real quick. I don't need any of this. Delete that. And I'll leave that guitar there. All right, save. I'm going to save all that and now go new. All right. Now, if we go to text and we go to Arial font, Arial is not a font that's good for doing monograms, but I want to show you. Let's see here. In fact, Brandy, and we'll do all caps. Brandy will be a good one to use. Now, a lot of times you'll see, in fact, let's go over to my art library, alphabet, B, add to project. All right, right now, if you tried to cut that out like that, that line of the B is the outer line is going to cut out. And when it does, everything inside of that's going to fall away. So these two smaller pieces are going to disappear. Same thing on the R. That outer piece is going to cut away. The R's, that inner piece is going to fall away. The inner piece of the A is going to fall away. The inner piece of the D is going to fall away because there's nothing that's going to hold that in place. But if you were to take and make the Arial a little bit larger so that it overlaps that black line there and down here, it's got to be a bigger yet. You get enough overlap, then you can weld those together. And now you can see this B is all solid. That little curly Q is solid. It's going to come down here. This is solid. That'll cut out and fall away. That'll fall away. That'll fall away. Now that'll work. But now then a problem that a lot of people have is they'll say, okay, now they've got that. And now they want to put it in a square. I didn't want to do that. Undo that. Select tool. Select that. Put it in the center of this square. And then they want to put a circle out here. And that's centered, but it don't look like it's centered, but it is. And when I get them looking like that, I cheat it. I do what looks good. I'll bring it about like that. That's not centered, but it looks better. But now if all of this was on a cut path and you cut all of that out, well, you cut that out, that's going to fall away. You can cut that out. Then everything to here, once you start cutting that out, actually, take it back. Everything inside that circle is going to cut out and fall away because it's nothing there to hold it. So you got to take that B and make it even bigger to where it overlaps your circle some. And then select your circle first. Hold your shift button and select the B and use your subtraction down here. Boolean subtract A, subtract B. Now this is going to cut out. That's a solid piece of the corner square. Come down that solid. All of that solid, all of that'll stay. But if you're doing something, and even though here I didn't get that B overlapping there, it's still touching here and here, so all that B is going to stay in place. But if you're going to do Brandy, and you're not going to weld it into any other piece, you're just going to put, let's get rid of all of that. Take Brandy, put it in the middle, shrink that down. And if you just wanted to do that, that won't work because there's nothing holding those inner pieces of the letters in place. When you cut out the B, that outer line is going to cut out and all that's going to fall away. If you really wanted to use the Arial font, you could do that, but you're going to have to make it a stencil font. And you could do that. There's actually a stencil font in most versions of Windows. Stencil. So you see how Stencil's got the lines through there? You can make a stencil font out of any font. So we go back to Arial. And if I draw a rectangle and I want to keep this rectangle's uniform through all my letters, so I'll do a 2 millimeter wide. Select that. Didn't want to do that. I want to select, delete, select. There we go. I'm going to bring this right over there. And now I will say A, subtract B. And that just created a stencil font out of that B. And what I should have done, though, undo that. I'm going to take this, duplicate it for R-A-N-D-Y. I just made a bunch of duplicates. I'm going to bring that over here, bring this one over here. And by keeping these all the same 2 millimeter thickness, I don't need it for N, and I don't need it for Y. So I did too many. Delete and delete. So now I can select my B and select that and subtract. There's a stencil font. Bring this one right up against there. So R and subtract. There's the stencil font. Here, I don't want that going straight up and down. So we're going to use Control 2. Does anybody remember using Control 2? Control 2 is a really, really cool tool. I'm going to select this. I'm going to bring that corner down, and I'm going to go right into that corner of that A. There. Now I'm going to hit Control, the number 2. And now I'm going to, there's one point. I just clicked and that's there. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab that rectangle right there and then start dragging it over to there. And that just snapped. And that made it line up perfect with that. And now I'm going to clean that up. I don't want that up there. And here again, there are 4, 5, 6 different ways to do this. You could do, but right now, since this is all grouped together, and I could ungroup it and then use my union tools or the cut tools and get rid of all that. But instead of editing the letter or the font, because that's all of the font up there still, I'm going to select that. I'm going to convert it to a path. Go to my node editing. And now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the letter T. No, T didn't work. T ain't working. All right. T for trim will usually clean up a lot of that. But when it don't want to work, I just come down here and put insert a node there. And then I'll come over here, select that one, and delete that one. Done. It's gone. Now with that cleaned up, I can select my letter A and select the rectangle and subtract. And that cleaned that up. And now I've got a stencil for A. Let's put that right against there and select the D, select the bar and subtract it. And now there's Brandy. Now you can cut that out just like you see it, Brandy, and that would all stay together. If you're doing some of the cursive fonts, and I'm going to cut this off in 6 minutes, but we're going to go with, let's look at the brush. Does it always work? Brush. I don't think brush always works. Let's see. Now, another thing you can run in that can help you out, you can see how this N overlaps the A, but you can see it. Turn on your welded function up here in your text, and that automatically welds those texts together. Those fonts are all welded together. The B and the A are B and the R are still separate, but that inner part of the D is gonna see, cut. That's not gonna work. I ain't real crazy about that sticking out there, but and the A is not. You need to connect that, the inner parts and the R too. You need, and that lower part of the B, and you could do that by simply creating a small cut. We're going to draw a line from here down to here, come over a little bit there, and then back to there. Select that piece that I just drew, or actually, you know what? Select the B first, then this, and subtract. And that didn't clean up completely because of the way I drew it. Node editing. Delete those. There we go. So by opening that up right there, and you could make this look better by rounding that over. And that's got to go away. Nodes. There we go. But by connecting that inner piece to the outer piece, then that would work. That'll cut out. And you do that to all the letters, connecting the pieces that are going to fall away, connect them to the outside of the letter or the outside of the font. All right. Let's see here. All right. Brandy says, thank you. This makes sense to me now. Okay, good. So we accomplished a couple of things for sure. We got Dale all the way up to 8, lots of 4s and 5s and 6s. So for those who aren't aware of what those numbers indicate, if you're relatively new to the channel, to help the feed of the comments, so that instead of people just going, oh, that's neat, I learned that. Oh, that's neat. The YouTube analytics works by how many comments. If there's 100 comments made, even though a 5 or a 6, there's nothing there, that's a comment. Every time somebody learns something new, put in, if you learn something first time, put in a 1. You learn another thing, put in a 2. You learn another thing, put in a 3. And that just helps with the analytics on YouTube. So if you're new to the channel and you see all these numbers and you're wondering what that was about, that just means that in this video watching tonight, Dale has now learned 8 things in this video, watching this video tonight. So, and Brandy's got a big old 5. So hopefully that helps you out, Brandy. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here with me and hanging out tonight. This was an impromptu live. I wanted to do a video showing this because this was what I told her that I would do, and I'm about got it finished design, and I'll have this online tomorrow, and then I'm going to go back to my inlays. I'm doing a project for a local business, and I'm going to create an inlay using the hard maple with some Osage orange, Paduke, and possibly walnut. So there'll be 3 or 4 different species in the inlay, and it's going to be about a foot, probably around a 12 by 12. Not, it probably won't be square, probably rectangular. It's going to be a large ice cream cone. The Osage orange will be the cone. The Paduke, which is kind of a reddish, will be strawberry ice cream. And then the letters might be walnut. I don't know. But that's what I'm going to be working on for Thursday and Saturday for the live stream, is more fun with inlays. Question mark. But if you don't drop the bottom piece from the B, won't you end up with a P? Yeah, because that, I think I understand. Had I not connected that, like it's connected up here, originally that would have all fallen out, but that would still be there, so it would have looked kind of like a P. Well, no, not really, because this would have just been a great big open hole. That would, top half would look like a P, but that would have been just a big open hole down here. So no, not really a P either. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. It's an hour 45. I've gone about 15 longer than I want to. I never really have a schedule, but hour and a half seems to be about most people's limits for these lives. So thank you for hanging out. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We need to be at 10,000 subscribers before June 15th. We're giving away a laser. If you haven't heard that yet, we're giving away a Rolly laser on my 2nd anniversary. And I really want to be at 10,000 subscribers, not just for me, but also for Leo. Leo is giving me the laser to give to you, and it's not limited to just the United States. This thing, if you're watching, you're eligible to win a Rolly laser. He's giving me this to give away for the 2nd anniversary, and I really would like to be able to tell him, well, at least 10,000 subscribers eyeballs are on this, along with the other people that are not subscribed seeing it. But for him to give away a laser of that value, it's a huge not commitment, but he's stepping up big time. And I would just love it if everybody would hit that subscribe button so that I can say, hey, you got some bang for your buck here. I'm not at 60, 70,000 subscribers yet. We'll get there. But subscribe. And just for the heck of it, we'll go out with a little fun. Here's my Trump impersonation. Thanks, guys.